And you're talking about, the role of the mind and the body. Maybe it's also worth explaining a little bit about how that actually interlinks. I mean, between, I know you do a lot of work with people in terms of a stress state and a healing state. And maybe explaining a little bit about how all that works. Because I think, a lot of people go, well, I was always stressed in my life. Just, I don't have to go to work anymore because I've got ME. How can I be stressed?
Absolutely. I think we tend to think of stress as something that happens in stressful situations. And I guess the key thing to understand is that human beings are built for stress, very much. We're designed to work with stress. But we're designed to work with caveman stress.
Explain what you mean.
I will. So if you think about being a caveman, because in essence we aren't that physiologically different to how we were in those times. So if you think about cavemen would have wandered around in the bushes, picking berries, and at certain points in the day or the week they'd have come up against a real physical threat, so a nice woolly mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger or whatever it was. At that point, the system is triggered into stress and all of the adrenals, pump out adrenaline in the body, and the muscles work differently, so you can run and fight or run, which is the fight-flight state. And physiologically, everything changes in the body for that time. That's absolutely okay if all you're doing is running away from a tiger and pretty much, or fighting it off. That's not going to take that long. So it's a fairly short-term state to be in. And what will then happen is the body will normalise again. It will adapt back to the fact that you're now just wandering around the bushes again. So in that sense, we're designed for what's called sort of acute short-term stress very well. And in fact, some people say that, they work best under those conditions. They know they work really well with that kind of real short-term stress. In fact, actors always say that if they don't get a little bit nervous, there's something wrong, So that's actually quite good for us. What isn't so good for us is the ongoing stressors. Most of us don't live like cavemen anymore. Our stresses are ongoing day-to-day stresses that are there all, really quite a lot of the time. And most of the patients, in fact, all of the patients I've ever seen with ME have had severe ongoing chronic stress in the period coming up to getting ill. The problem with that is that we weren't built for it. And it's completely unsustainable for the body to maintain what we call the stress state, but, is the fight-flight state, really, on an ongoing basis. Because your adrenals weren't designed to work that hard. Your body wasn't designed to be in that state. Things like the immune system are suppressed in that state. Your digestion doesn't work so well in that state because it's not important if you're fighting a woolly mammoth, right?
Okay. So, I guess digesting lunch is not a priority at that point.
Not a priority at that point. So what we're saying is if over a long period of time your body is subjected to that state, it will start to have a severe detrimental impact on your health. And we've known that really since Hans Selye in the 1920s did some experiments with rats and put rats under chronic stress. Not that we're advocating that in any way, shape or form, but that's really the beginnings of our understanding of the impact of stress on the body.
So what you're saying is that often in advance of ME, there's too many stresses that are happening in someone's life together. Yeah. And it's almost like it's the overload of that which then becomes the issue.
Exactly. It's the overload. And the problem with that is that because the body's overloaded, it thinks it still needs to be in stress, if that makes sense. It kind of, the sense is that you're under threat because physically and emotionally you are under threat from all of these stresses. And almost the body learns to normalise this new state of stress as being normal. So exactly what you say, a lot of people come into clinic and they say, yeah, that was true then, but since then I've done nothing for days, weeks, months, even years. Why haven't I got better? And actually, the factor that we seem to see to be completely true there is what we call the maladaptive stress response, which is that if you put someone in chronic stress over an ongoing period of time, the body learns to stay there. It doesn't adapt back to the healing state in the way that it should. And the problem with that is you can be doing nothing but be very stressed.
And I guess also having an illness like ME is incredibly stressful, right? So that people have got the stress of also being ill.
It's one of the most stressful things. I would say it's even traumatic, really, because as you said at the beginning, when I was going through my experience, I was expecting doctors to say, well, this is the way that you come out of this, and this is the problem, and this is how long it will take, and take this pill and you'll be better. And that's the old model that we expect from the medical system. And of course, ME utterly doesn't fit that model. So there's a lot of stress around being ill in itself and what's happening and all these weird physical symptoms, and often not being able to explain it to friends, family, partners, colleagues, problems at work, all of that. It can often feel like you're living a bit of a double life, and that is incredibly stressful and quite dramatic for people who are going through it. So as you say, even if there were no stresses before it, having ME is incredibly stressful. And the problem is, of course, in that state, your body is not acting in a way that's going to be helpful for actually healing and getting well. The clue is in the name, stress state and healing state. And actually you've got to be more in a healing state more of the time for your body to get well. And actually the situation, the circumstances of ME often mean we're in stress most of the time.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying is people effectively are in exactly the opposite state to what they need to be in to be able to heal. And I think it's, you know, the story of the frog, and you put it in a glass of cold water and you heat it up, it'll stay in there and die. Yeah. If you drop it in boiling water, it'll jump straight out again.
Absolutely. I think the key thing to realise is our body knows how to be well. Our body knows how to heal. At least I very much believe that that's the case. And I think that if you aren't healing, when you've stopped and you've taken away those stresses, what we know must be the case is that at some level your body isn't in the right state to do it. Yeah, it's still acting as if it's running away from tigers all of the time. And I think most people with CFS, ME, fibromyalgia recognise that to be true, because if they really stop and think and feel into it, if you like, that's pretty much how it feels as well.
Yeah.